Hey guys, ranked is here, or at least it will be tomorrow. And in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys my top 8 decks that I think you should probably play day 1 of ranked if you want to hit masters as soon as possible. With that, guys, don't forget to like, hype, and subscribe. Let's hop into our first deck list, and we're going to go over everything, and that is the Fire Beatdown Mega Charizard. Starting off with the Mega Pokemon himself, the strongest Mega Pokemon in the entire game with a 250 damaging move for 4 energy, 3 fire, 1 colorless. However, you do deal 50 damage back to yourself. So if you're not holding a cape or anything, your Charizard will always end up being 170 HP. You'll need to know that because your opponents could potentially counter you the following turn. And if you lose a Mega Pokemon, you lose the game, but this is often used as a final move and more of a deterrent. Instead, you almost always want to just lead with your Entei EX, even if you're going first, because the Legendary Pulse helps you draw cards from your deck. While you're doing that, you want a Charmander on your bench, so that way on turn 2, even if you went first, you could evolve your bench Charmander into Charmeleon, proc the ability Ignition, and then give that active Entei an energy while also giving an energy from your energy zone, and you get to attack your opponent's Pokemon and hit them for 16, often knocking out their basics and picking up a very fast price point. After that, you're probably going to be investing your energy onto your Charmeleon. And once you lose your Entei, you have options like the 2 Flame Patches to help you further accelerate your Charmeleon into a Charizard or a Mega Charizard. Why? The Charizard is here to help you counter things like Oricorio, because anytime you have an EX Pokemon deck, you're gonna have to worry about Oricorio. It is how it is. So all these decks will have some sort of Oricorio counter. But with that, the cards that you really want in this deck are the Maze, because the Maze help you find the cards you're looking for. If turn 2, you're missing a Charmeleon, well, that May could be the card that's standing in your way of finding that Charmeleon. We also have a Copycat to help us fill up our hand after we've used all the cards we wanted to use from our hand, and a Sabrina to switch out our opponent's active into their bench and potentially knock them out if they're a Mega Pokemon and you have Mega Charizard Y online. And that's just our first deck. So let's hop into our next one. And that's got to be the No EX Control deck that's running the new Magnezone as well as 2 Oricorios. And it's very simple. You use Oricorio to wall your opponents. Now, this deck is very good into the current meta because almost every deck has an EX Pokemon unless they're also running Magnezone Oricorio. And then the new Magnezone says, for 90 damage, your opponent also has to flip a coin if they want to attack you. And if they flip tails, they don't do anything. So you could actually just stun lock your opponent and hit them for 90 back to back. That's 180 in 2 turns. You're often knocking out almost anything in the game outside of the Mega Pokemon. With that being said, we have Sustain with Nurse Joy. We have Guzma to get rid of any sort of tools that your opponents might have, specifically Poison Points and Rocky Helmets. We have 2 Copycats to help us find the cards we're looking for, more specifically the Magnetons and Magnezones, but we also have the new Clement to help us find the Magnetons, which is so cool because even if you have 0 Magnetons in your hand, you hit Clement and you just thinned out your deck, you drew both your Magnetons, and you're that much closer to just stun locking your opponent entirely. Definitely check out this deck if you have a more of a control play style. Speaking of control, the next deck we're going to talk about is the Mega Lopunny EX deck, which is possibly my favorite new Mega Pokemon because for 2 fighting energies, you flip 2 coins. For every heads, you deal 90. So this already can hit up to 180 and it has 190 HP as a stage 1, but not to worry. If you hit 2 tails, you deal 0 damage, but you still confuse your opponents, which is why I consider this more of a control burst deck list. The rest of the deck also includes the new Magnezone. You're going to see that possibly a few more times in these decks because Magnezone is just so good to also combo with the Mega Lopunny. So you're either stun locking with Magnezone or you're confusing with the Mega Lopunny. We have the Rocky Helmets to chip extra damage. So that way, if they hit you, they hit your Magnemites, your Magnetons, or even your Banaries, they take 20 damage. By that time, you can get your Magnezone online, hit for 90 plus all those chip damages, or your Mega Lopunny to also combo in on that Rocky Helmet damage. We have a Cyrus to pull in cards to win games, a Clement because I already explained that. That's a fantastic card to thin out your deck and pull those 2 Magnetons, a May to help you find the cards you're looking for, and a Copycat to refill your hand. I think this is also going to be a really fun deck. I might try this day 1 of ranked. Next up is a Greninja combo deck that honestly I've never never tried, and I haven't actually seen in ranked, but it seems to be doing very well in tournaments. So I thought I'd include it in today's video since it's doing so well. And let's be honest, Greninja isn't going anywhere. You can put this in any deck and it makes that deck that much better. And the idea is you build up your Mega Altaria, you might even frontline with a Furfuro or Chingling to stop them from using any sort of item cards from their hand, build up your Greninja, get it online, snipe your opponent, and then bring them in with Cyrus, and then absolutely decimate them with your Mega Altaria and a full bench to hit them for 130. It's a very cheeky way of playing this deck, and I imagine we're going to see a lot of this in ranked, possibly the first few days. I think this could potentially maybe replace Suicun Greninja, but only time will tell. Speaking of replacing Suicun Greninja, I think this deck has been my favorite type of counter deck to that. Now, obviously, you can play things like Oricorio to counter Suicun Greninja, but having Hydreigon be able to hit for 130 or 140, knocking out that Suicun with Giovanni has been spectacular. And this season, you got an upgrade to this deck. You can run 2 Furfuros to frontline with Rocky Helmets. So already they're taking minus 20 damage. Your opponent hits you, they're taking 20 damage. And you have an Indeedee on the bench to continually recover your Furfuro, all while finding your key cards to evolve into your Hydreigon and get your Mega Absol online. Then discard cards from your opponent's hand. We also have 2 copycats because it is a rare candy build. For a stage 2, we want to find those cards, as well as 1 Cyrus to just close out games when you need it. I think this is still going to be a very strong deck into this meta. It's going to do well into Suicun Greninja. If they are playing Suicun Greninja, then you might not actually play them Mega Absol because you don't want them to snipe and win the whole game. But outside of that, I think it's still going to be a very strong, aggressive discard deck. So definitely try this deck if you're a fan of either Hydreigon or Mega Absol, or even the new Furfuro. All right, we've been talking about Suicun Greninja this, Suicun Greninja that. I think it's time I show you Suicun Greninja's deck list. And the title for this, instead of board control, we're just calling it game control, because most times you control the entire game with this cheesy deck. It's so strong. I say it's cheesy because it's so hard to play around it, especially if your opponent gets the cards they need. Suicun does 2 things. It draws for you, and it forces your opponent to consider what they're putting on the bench, because if they fill up their bench, they are only making your Suicun stronger, all while finding your Greninjas to help you snipe, to then pull them in with your Cyrus and potentially knock them out. But also the Greninja EX. It is such an annoying card because you could, if you evolve one of your Froakie into Greninja EX, well, now you could retreat your Suicuns, pretty much any water type Pokemon you want for free without losing their water energy. So you can actually frontline with something, another full HP Suicun, swap it out the next turn and go into a fully energied Suicun or Greninja and potentially win the game. On top of that, there is an Indeedee here to help you recover HP. It is so annoying to go up against, which is why it's probably still one of the best decks in the entire meta. You guys remember that time where water decks just weren't a thing anymore? Yeah, that was really short-lived now, wasn't it? So if you're looking to just sweat and not have fun with any other of the new cards, this is probably the deck you're playing. Let's be honest. Next up is a Decidueye variant deck, and you already know this is fantastic. Oricorio typically counters this, but the non-EX Decidueye with the sniping arrow doesn't care. We'll snipe that Oricorio, get rid of it, which is a fantastic counter. Now, the issue I have with this deck is going first with Rowlet really sucks unless your opponent is also having a not so great first turn. However, going second could be fantastic outside of your opponent having things like Entei, Charmeleon turn 2, right? Then you're pretty much gone. There's no such thing as a Leaf Cape in this deck. We're running Rocky Helmets to do that chip damage if they hit us. So that way, even if we go into the Decidueye EX, we can just give it the extra energy and start piercing the pain. We also have a Quick Grow Extract to help us evolve if we don't find our rare candies. And we have 3 sustain cards, being 2 Lilies and an Erica. Now, you could play around with this deck and maybe put some Leaf Capes, but honestly, I think the Rocky Helmets are so much better because they add damage onto the board, which is kind of what you want your Owl to do. You want damage on the board, so that way you can just come in, sniping arrow anything with the extra 20 damage or pierce the pain. Definitely a classic, and I think Decidueye's sticking around for quite some time. Now let's go to the final deck list, which I actually already made a video on, and that's the Wall Harmony deck. This thing is fantastic. It's also running Mega Altaria, which is probably the strongest Mega Pokemon, not the newest Mega Pokemon, but the strongest we've had, because it's a stage 1 that can hit up to 130 going second on your second turn, which is nuts. On top of that, we're running the new Furfrou to take that frontline damage with Rocky Helmet, while the reduction in damage we take, while also having 4 Pokemon with 50 HP or less to target our Licia with to fill up our bench, and a Sabrina and Cyrus to close out games. I think this is also a really strong shell for Mega Altaria. Honestly, you just can't go wrong with Mega Altaria. It was great last season. It's going to be great this season. But what I love about this season is I don't think there's going to be one deck outside of this one. Let's be honest. There's not going to be one deck that's just going to be the strongest deck ever. You might go into a certain matchup, but that's just matchmaking roulette. You don't know what you're going into, right? So you don't know what to actually bring. So I recommend, this is how I play ranked. I take a specific deck and I'll play an X amount of matches. 5, 10, 20, 30 matches. And then once I get sick of that deck, I'll change it at that point. But with that being said, let me know what deck you're excited to use first, what you might use the entire season to climb to Masters, and what deck that is not included in this top 8 do you think should have had an honorable mention? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, hype, and subscribe. And I'll catch you guys in the ranked season. We're going live and we're climbing, baby. Later.